Alright, so in this video we're checking out the new Flywoo CineRace20. So this is a 2-inch Cinewhoop type of quad micro drone, and the name CineRace implies that it can do Cinewhoop type stuff and also some FPV racing type stuff. Maybe a little bit of acro freestyle in there as well. And this is something that kind of surprised me a little bit in terms of the way it flew, the way it sounded. Quite different from a lot of other 2-inch Cinewhoops that I've flown in the past. And I think they did do a lot of work on the PID tune. They have a interesting design here with these ducks. And these are, I think I would qualify these as real ducks. So the parts here are ABS injection molded plastic here. They do come in multiple colors. If you want to mix and match colors, you can do that. They sent along a spare pink frame here, and you can see that the parts come like this. They're actually the same part, I believe. Yeah, it's like this. But they interlock when you put them together like this. And they come with these M2 standoffs that go inside here that hold the quad together. Basically, the way the motors are mounted, and the way this is connected to the rest of the frame, those standoffs and the ducts actually hold the whole quad together. I'll talk about durability issues momentarily. So there's a lot of new stuff on this one. So this comes in obviously digital or DJI. Also comes in analog. And you can also buy lots of spare parts and stuff on the Flywoo site. So if you want spare parts and that kind of stuff, most of them stuff are going to be on the Flywoo website. So I'll link those in the video description. If you're just looking for the quad by itself and not interested in other stuff, some of their stores will carry, like Makerfire will carry just the quad by itself. Obviously, they'll come with different receiver options. This one is the Express LRS receiver option. So we got the little nano Express LRS receiver in the back here, and this one here is the version with the micro FL connector and dipole antenna. You previously saw a version of this receiver on the Flywoo Baby Nano, which was the one with the SMD antenna, the surface mounted antenna, and this one has now the dipole antenna, 2.4 gigahertz of course. You got your Vista there. You got your flight controller here on the bottom with the USB port sticking out of the bottom. We'll talk about that shortly. Comes with a variety of different mounts available for your cameras. So they sent along this one. The one that's on here currently is for the Go 2. The Peanut also fits that, which is what I flew it with. You can get the SMO 4K mount here, the naked GoPro mount, and a Go 1 mount. So these are all optional accessories you can purchase from Flywoo. When you purchase the quad, you can add these on for additional cost. They do have the STLs available on the website on the main product page. If you would just want the STLs, you want to print these out yourself. Those are also available if you just want to get the STLs and print them yourself and not actually have to pay for these extra. You get 2 spare sets of props. These are the new Gemfan 2-inch propellers with 5 blades. And they do include an extra longer battery strap, which is, you're going to need this if you're going to be flying the bigger battery. So they have these new bigger battery options now, the 900 milliamp hour 4S, and they have a 300 milliamp hour 4S, which is, I think I flew this on a previous quad as well. This one's the newer one. I'll show you the weights here in a second. Basically, in terms of flight time, if you're wondering about the flight time, it's going to vary depending on how you fly. The range is pretty wild. So if you're going all out on the 300, you can burn the battery out in under a minute easily. If you're flying more gently, cruising around, Cinewhoop style flying, you can stretch it out to 2.5, 3 minutes, possibly even longer, depending on the conditions that you're flying it in. The 900 is much heavier. It's going to be for more slower flights, so you're not going to be able to do any acro with this on this heavier battery, but it's going to give you longer flight time. It's going to vary if you're going crazy and flying really fast. You can get as low as 5 minutes in this. If you're cruising around going a lot slower, Cinewhoop style flying, you can get, I would say, up to 11 minutes. I think they showed a flight on their Instagram where they flew around for 11 minutes, kind of just cruising around. I was typically getting about 9.5 to 10 minutes. Now, the reason you get the longer battery strap is for this bigger battery, because the battery strap that comes on the quad, this one here, only really works with batteries of this size. Now, if you want to go to a little bit bigger battery, like a 450, this is a 450 4S, it's a little bit longer, will fit this stock battery strap that's pre-installed, and this one will give you about 4-ish minutes of flight, around 4.5 minutes of flight. Alright, so this is what the quad weighs. It's 119.3 grams. With the Force 350, comes in 161.4. The Force 450, 172.9. And the Force 900, now we're coming in at 209.4. Alright, so a couple more things to note. They have a new Vtx antenna. Comes in obviously various connector types, micro FL, MMCX, SMA, right hand, left hand polarized, different lengths, etc. Just like their previous series antennas. I don't know if they have a specific name for this one. Don't see it marked on here anywhere. But this is their newest design. They obviously have it included pre-installed on this quad. And this is the left-hand polarized version, obviously for DJI, and for regular analog, they'll have right-hand polarized versions available as well. So you can check out their website for that. This is supposedly a little bit better performance compared to the old design. Although, honestly, in DJI, the old one seemed fine. This one seems fine, the same. I can't really tell that much difference because I don't know how far away you're going to be able to fly with this one anyway. But if you're interested in something maybe perhaps a little bit better performance than their old antennas, maybe you want to check that one out. The this model comes with a Bluetooth radio, which is shoved in right there, which you can barely see. It's between the duct and the Vista. So once you plug it in, if you don't want to plug in the USB port, which is on the bottom on your computer, and you just want to use like your phone to maybe change some PID settings or whatever, you can use this PDB app to wirelessly connect to the adapter to connect to your flight controller, configure it via the smartphone app. So that's also on there as well. And you can notice that they have this little cable here. This is for the Smoke 4K camera. Obviously, I didn't use that, so I just tucked it into the battery strap here to keep it out of the way. And I did fly mine with the shorter battery strap. It just doesn't collapse or doesn't lock onto the battery because it comes with a very sticky, this little sticky battery pad that holds the battery on fine. And since I was just flying slowly, cruising around, that'll be fine. That'll hold the battery on fine. You just can't do any acro or flips or rolls and that kind of thing with a big battery, because you have to swap the battery strap if you want to do that. And then last but not least, well, actually not last but not least, but they have these newer motors, 12, yeah, I'm not going to be able to show. I'll just put a picture up here on the screen, 1203, these are the new 1203 Pro motors. They come in 3400 kV and 11,500 kV. I think that 11,500 is for like a 1S setup. I think that'll be in a future model. I haven't seen that one in anything yet. But this one obviously is for 4S. So it's a 1203 motor, obviously an inverted setup here, for cinema flying. And then last but not least is the updated camera. So they're using the 14mm camera here. That's what the size of this takes. But this is the new Cadix Polar Nano camera. So much smaller and much lighter than the original Polar camera, obviously with the same sensor. I can't really talk too much about it yet because it's still under embargo, so I will have all the details in a future video, but you can see clearly that it is much smaller and lighter than the Polar camera, and this will be the 14mm, well, the only 14mm camera that you can get anywhere as far as I know at the time of the recording of this video, because the Nebula Nano, their older camera, is no longer in production, and this Polar Nano is now going to be replacing that. So the reason this is still under embargo is because they basically are making all these smaller cameras, or the 14mm cameras, for all these bind and fly manufacturers like iFlight, Flywoo, Happy Model, etc., for their new models, because they've been waiting for an updated 14mm camera for a while. So all the vendors are getting the first few batches initially, and then they should be coming out for sale soon. As soon as they're for sale, I'll drop the video. That's basically why the video is not out yet, because you can't buy it anywhere other than in a bind and fly. So yeah, if you want the camera, you can buy the quad and it will come with this camera. So yeah, unfortunately, you have to wait if you want to buy the camera separately, because all the bind and fly vendors have, I guess they've taken first dibs on all the initial batches of this camera, because they're they're not manufacturing these cameras at a high clip right now because of the chip shortage and all the other supply chain problems. Okay, so talk about the flying characteristics. First, the noise level is surprisingly less than your typical, say, 2-inch Cinewhoop, like this little iFlight Alpha. So this one weighs a little bit less than this. I think it's like 109 grams, it's 117 grams, something like that. So this is slightly less heavy, but it actually is louder because this doesn't have real ducts on here, just prop guards. And so even though this is heavier, it actually sounds to the ear, the noise is much more pleasant sounding. It's not the shrill isn't as annoying. It isn't quiet, so I don't want you to be misunderstanding that this is quiet by any means, but it is not nearly as annoying or as loud as your typical 2-inch Cinewhoop. And I think it's a combination of this blade and the fact that this is actually a real duct. So there's a lip here where the air is intake, basically coming for an intake, and there's a slight angle on this duct at the top part, and then at the exhaust it's flat. So let me see if I can show it to you on this. Oh, this shows up better on this pink one. So you can kind of see it's a curve here, and you can see where that little area right there, it's kind of curved at an angle, and then it's straight at the bottom. Or actually, I think it's a little bit angled as well, the opposite direction. In any event, I think this design with the airflow does make it a little bit more efficient, a little bit less noisy, and you actually get the benefits of an actual duct design. So now I think these guys are finally coming around and putting some real duct designs into their Cinewhoops, which is a good thing. Now, this is ABS injection molded plastic, and well, if you crash it, it's probably going to break, and which I've broken these. You can't see it as well on mine. It still flies totally fine, even though I've been flying around broken. I've had a few minor crashes. Yeah, this is not going to come out very well on camera, but there's a crack right here that you can barely see, and it's really hard to see. But basically, the duct does crack right there. I think it has something to do with the design of the mold. Yeah, it's not going to come out. I'm not exactly sure. I think maybe that's just where there's a stress point right here in the design. So on actually both of the rear ducts, you can see a crack right there and also right there. It's on both sides. Yeah, it does not really come out well on camera. It does not affect, like, it doesn't give you jello or anything like that. I didn't even notice it at first until I examined the quad before I recorded this video. So those, nothing's indestructible. So if I think I crashed this into, I crashed into a tree, I crashed into a sidewalk, I crashed it all over the place because I was trying to fly it more aggressively, because they said that you can fly this more aggressively. They've tuned it for acro flying and freestyle, and which is true because there's almost hardly any prop wash on any of the dives and anything that I did like that. So I was actually remarkably surprised, and I'm thinking that has to do with the pin tune as well as the fact that they're using real ducts. I don't know exactly what, it's probably a combination of the two, but yeah, the pin tune is probably the best I've ever seen out of a 2-inch Cinewhoop. And yeah, I hadn't even noticed that the ducts were cracked back there. It does not seem to affect the flight at all. In terms of structural integrity, it seems totally fine. I think on one of the sidewalk crashes when I was doing a power loop, I did break this front piece here. Also, this is ABS plastic. You can see it's cracked there. It's still attached, kind of. But yeah, it does move around, but it doesn't give me any gel or anything like that. But they have replacement parts for all these, the ducts, this part here, everything. Very easy to just get them off the Flywoo site. I think this one's like $2. So not a huge deal. And then their design is really unique, where the two duct pieces are on the side. Basically just for maintenance, you just take the motors off, and then there's a screw over here and a screw over here. Take that off, this top plate comes off, and then you have access to the inside. The Vista did not require any updating, so it did come with the latest firmware, 0600, which is what I use, and so I didn't have to plug that in. But yeah, if you need to do that, you can just take those two screws off, lift it up, and then you'll be able to pull the Vista out. And of course the USB ports on the bottom, and then they have a Bluetooth radio for connecting to the SpeedyBee app if you just want to configure your quad that way. But yeah, overall, pleasantly surprised with this one. I don't usually get very excited about 2-inch Cinewhoop, so like, you know, to me, I think that if you want longer flight times, you want to go to a 2.5-inch or 3-inch, and they are also less noisy because of the power to weight ratio. But yeah, if you're looking for something really nice and compact, it performs pretty well. Now, it doesn't have a lot of power. In the end, when I was trying these power loops, that's how I ended up crashing these. You need a lot of power to get the quad over a tree or some other object, and it doesn't have that kind of power. So if you're trying to do those kind of tricks, I would say this is not really meant for that. But for, like, you know, racing type flying or indoor whoop racing, simple like flips and rolls, that kind of thing, it's totally good for that. And of course, you know, just doing typical cinema flying, totally fine with that. And I got, you know, pretty good footage out of the Caddx Peanut here flying it on this setup here. Anyway, I'm going to link all the flight footage, narrated flights, etc. down in the video description, along with links to everything else I talked about in the video. If you got any questions, let me know. I'll talk to you guys in the next one.